My name is George Potvin. I was on the fire department for 33 years, on the Ottawa Fire Department, 33 years. Also one of the founders of the Bytown Fire Brigade. Actually, I was a catalyst that got it going, and then we got a group together. And between the small group that we had then, we managed to get a franchise for the Bytown Fire Brigade. We got that founded, and it's been in existence for 35 years, I believe, about 35 years. And behind me, what you see is my fire truck. It's a 1927 Sanford fire engine. And it was one of the trucks that drove across Canada, right across, even over the Rockies, which was quite an experience, let me tell you. It took us almost 4 months, 3 months and 3 weeks before we got back. And we saw, well, name it, got everything, even a t-shirt, you see, from St. John. I think that's St. John's in the back of this one. I got t-shirts from the fire departments from almost everywhere, right across the nation. And we had people we had a group of about 10 people, 5 vehicles to maintain and to drive across. And let me tell you, those old vehicles, people would ask me, well, did anything break down? Well, everything broke down. Everything. I mean, you name it, it broke. And we, with the firefighters right across the country, it's a brotherhood. Everybody helps everybody else out. They always know somebody who knows how to do the welding or knows how to do the mechanics. And so we managed to get right through the whole thing in the year 2000. As I said, it took quite a while. Quite a lot of patience. Canada is a big country. The furthest I'd ever been was Sudbury. That's the furthest I had ever driven in my car. So at 30 miles an hour with these old trucks, let me tell you, it's a far cry from a car. It takes forever to get anywhere. You drive and you drive and you drive, and it doesn't always stop where you want it to stop either. So John Carrier had his truck. We had one from Bytown Fire Brigade, a 28 American La France GMC, and this one. And we managed to get it all done before the winter came along. But when we left originally, it was sleet. In Newfoundland, it was sleet and snow, and we were almost in a snowmobile suit in these old vehicles to drive across. And behind this truck, you'll see a net. That's one of the things you had to go through when you first came on the job. You had to jump into that net. So you had to climb a 2-story garage where they stored the fire trucks, which doesn't look so big when you're looking at it like that. But when you're looking at it from up there, looking down, I'll tell you, it's quite scary. But if you wanted to be on the job, you needed to be able to do that. Jump into that net with 10 guys holding the net. And as soon as you hit the net, they bring it down and absorb the shock. And then you go inside to the washroom, clean yourself up, because it scared the heck out of you, I tell you. So you'd climb up and do it again. So that was, when I came on the job, there was only 3 of us at the time, and let me tell you, it was quite an experience. And of course, the first thing they try and do, they put you on an aerial ladder truck, and they raise it almost as high as it'll go to try and scare the daylights out of you. And they usually manage to do it pretty well. It's very scary the first time you've been up on one of those. And you'll see in the background there's also all kinds of, well, you can't see them now very much. There's helmets of every type that you can imagine, like this one, for example. My own helmet that was issued when I came on the job. And it's a little bit battered up because it gets dinged every time we go someplace. And we'll do a little bit of a walk around and
Yeah,
show
so
you some of it.
what year did you start the service, George?
1966.
1966.
March 26, 1966.
26th of March.
Okay, it's okay, Cecile. I got the question answered.
She my prompt. This, let's see. If you look back there, you'll see all kinds of old helmets, new and old. The yellow ones being more up to date. I'm sure you've seen them on firefighters nowadays, but they're slightly changed. When you compare it to this, which is tin, and you hit an electrical wire with this, and your ears are touching the side of the helmet like this, you tend to get a good shock. So it wasn't the safest thing in the world, but it's what we had. And if you look at this, this is how I started this truck for the first couple of years. A crank. You put gasoline in the little priming cylinders, and then you crank this thing over, and then you crank it and crank it and crank it and crank it until it finally gets started. Actually, it starts very well. Let's see. You can see here, it's made into an old, into a museum, like a fire station with the brass pole at the back. That guy up there, we call him Oscar. He protects the hole, so when kids come visiting, they don't end up falling right through. And if you look down here, you'll see, let's see, can you follow through? Will you fit down here? This is some of the history of the fire service here. If you look at 1893, you see how many firefighters there are there, about a dozen or so. And then the one below that is 1901, with maybe 15 firefighters. And then it goes to 14, it is 1914, which has maybe 20 or so. And then if you look at 1922, look at the number of firefighters there. That's because in the year 1916, they had the fire on Parliament Hill, if you look over here. And after that, it increased the fire department staff by quite a bit. It usually goes in waves like that. Once you get a big fire that affects people, then they're more conscious of fire. After it hit the politicians, of course, politicians, now it was important because it hit them. So then they hired a whole lot more people for the fire department, and it just went on from there. Here is a plaque that I got from the Fallen Firefighters Memorial. I was one of the founders myself. Will Brooks and Bill Williams were the three main founders of that museum. Got quite a bit of money from the government, and the monument ended up costing about $5.5 million, and we managed to put it together. It took 12 years to get it going, but we finally got it going. And if you look through here, this whole museum, it's all kinds of artifacts from anything from over there where there's an alarm system that's 100 years old and still operates. And I can even start it up for you. They said, will you pull the box? Pull the box over there on the wall. I don't know if it's wound up, but try it.
What?
Tire la patente.
Oh.
Ouvre la porte. Là. It wasn't wound up. What this does, it's not doing it now because it wasn't wound up, but it will signal out like here 5313. So you look at 5313, your fire alarm box location, This is from number 8 station. And then you look through there, it says 5313, it's at the corner of whatever it happens to be. And they also had codes. In the box itself, there's a little code like this, tap. Then when they need more help, they just send more help. They had their own codes. So that's the way that works. So this is 100 years old and still runs. So you can imagine, like these things are built tough. Nowadays you throw it away after a few years. But here there's, and this here is an axe, the first axe of the fire department, given to us by Mr. Jefferson, which is the one that cut down the apple tree there? This is the same axe, except we had to change the head and the handle 3 times. So.
No, George, you're quite the storyteller.
Well, maybe it's a little bit of an exaggeration. And this here, everybody had one of these. Hose key and belt.
Is that your original hose key?
I don't remember, not this one, no.
No? Whose engravings on that one?
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger body than me. You put that on, this opens the hydrant with this lug. Here it takes off 1.5 inch hose, and here's 2.5 hose, so that you can uncouple them.
So you started.
Everybody had one of these.
You started your career in 1966. Do you remember the first call that you went on as a rookie?
Yeah, it was. Ironically, it was a series of sheds, 1 street over from where I used to live. And the first thing they do is they say, all right, you just follow that guy, do what he says. So I followed this guy, and he was in there and he's throwing stuff out. He said, here, throw that out. But he was right in the smoke, you couldn't see anything. I mean, I couldn't see anything. How the hell can you see anything? I couldn't, but he could. He'd been there for quite a while. He was used to that stuff. No coughing from him. He just swallowed it all up. I said, holy mackerel, we gotta follow this guy? He's crazy. But anyways, after a few years, you get just as crazy as he is. And you do the same thing. You didn't wear masks in those days. The guy who wore the mask, he was the, what's he doing wearing a mask? You know, he was the oddball. And there was only 1 mask per station. Now there's 1 mask for every member of the fire department. But in those days it was just 1 mask. And I have upstairs a series of different masks from almost every era, starting from during the war right through to almost the modern day ones of today. So that gives you an idea of something. There's lots of stuff in the fire department here, and you can see all kinds of artifacts here. If we go upstairs, you'll see lots of these are interesting things here. Fire marks. If you had one of these on your house, you were covered by insurance. So if there was a fire at your place, the fire department was private then, and the fire company would run to the fire, look for a fire mark on your house. If you didn't have one of those, well, they'd wait until the fire burned to the house that had one of these, and then they'd put it out. That's the way it was. It was private, so the first guy who would run down there, he'd usually take over the hydrant. He was the scrappy guy. He ran fastest, got hold of the hydrant, and he fought everybody else off until his guys got there. And then the first one to put water on the fire were the ones that were paid. And this is a good example. See here, this is Fire Department, New York. When it says Fire Department before the initials of the city, it means the fire department was founded before the city was a city. Exactly because of that, the fire would start someplace, they'd let it burn till it went to someplace that was insured. So they decided, the heck with that, we're going to make a fire department that's a paid fire department. And That's how most of the fire departments got going, because you end up losing half the city. In the old days, that's the way it was. They just burnt and burnt and burnt until it got to a place that was insured.
So is this an authentic pole here that?
Yeah, I can't tell you where that came from because I'd probably get arrested.
Do you remember using them in your time?
Oh shit! Yes, I used them lots of time.
Any,
A lot of guys broke their ankles on those. You know, they're trying to play the fool.
Was there any time in the middle of the night when you kind of landed on each other because both of you were going
No,
down?
actually, the guys were pretty good. They'd get down, and you knew you had to get the heck out of the way because somebody else is coming down, and it was usually 2 stories high, so you accelerate quite a bit. You know, but you put your arm around it like this. You put your feet around like this, arm around like this, and then you squeeze your arm on the pole so it stops you as a brake.
This is the brake,
Yeah.
the arm.
Yeah.
And you've got a bunch of coats and helmets over here. Is the original one there? Or one that looks like your original one?
Yeah, this one. This one here, and this one. This is my brother's coat. Yeah, he was on the fire department as well.
In Ottawa here?
In Ottawa, yeah. And mine I lost someplace.
So is there any calls that really stand out the most when we talk about the fire service? You must have seen fatalities.
Oh
and
yeah, well we had one time where by the time we got there, it was already too late. There were 4 kids lost their lives there, and it was early in my career. I was on the job maybe 3 years or 3 or 4 years, and by the time we got to the house, people were sitting on top of the roofs screaming, and 4 children lost their lives in there. That was quite a sad place. There's also other places, but that to me was the most, you don't like to think about that. Especially kids, where you go in there and you see them, it's not very pleasant for anybody. After, during, or before. You want to be able to do something to try and prevent it.
what about highlights of your career?
You do so many things, you know, that you don't think about any particular one. It stands out when you're talking with some of your friends. It stands out, and then oh yeah, I remember that. Remember that time we went down there? So nothing of particular interest except some of the bad things that you'd rather forget anyway.
So firefighters are known for their cooking skills. How's your cooking skills?
Well, I was a cook for about 8 years at number 6. You make lots of stuff with hamburger meat. Casseroles and stuff that's easy and you put on. So long as you have lots, the quantity seems to be the biggest asset. You know, how much is there and can I have seconds or thirds? There's always somebody that has a hollow leg there. It takes forever to fill it, it seems. But I cooked quite a few things. Yeah, I was there for old number 6. I was a cook there for a while. 6, 10. Good God. Just as well not think about it. There's too many.
Now, I remember interviewing a few other retired firefighters over the last couple of days, and they were telling me some pretty funny stories. Do you got any that you'd like to share?
Oh, good God. Well, one time I'm cooking in number 10. And there was always this guy hanging around the kitchen bothering people. So what I did is I took all of the shelves out of the fridge and I sat inside the fridge with a book. And then somebody had somebody send this guy, said, go and get something in the fridge. He opens the door to the fridge. As soon as he opens the door, I said, oh God, I can't read in the dark. Every time somebody closes the door, I can't see. So, but he just sort of opened the door. And he closed the door. And then he opened it again. He couldn't believe that somebody sitting inside the fridge. Hi there, how you doing? We had all kinds. I used to pull tricks on everybody. Do the French the beds, you know, you bend the the cover's over, so the guy slides into bed. He can't put his feet down on it and hide under the bed. When the other guy comes down, he lies down, put my hand over top of it, it was the old beds in those days. Put my hand over, and grab him by the head. He almost had a heart attack. Jumped right up and throwing water on guys from the top of one of the fire stations. That happened on quite a few occasions, but not me. Not me. I would never do that.
Yeah, okay.
No.
George, there's a crest the Bytown Fire Department has that has a picture of a firefighter with a very dark mustache.
Yeah. Well, it is.
Was that kind of formed after somebody here?
Well,
Or designed?
I never say it was, but it was a resemblance. We had some artists. We had a museum in the lower town, and the artists there they probably took some ideas from the look I had in those days. But it was a popular look at firefighters, the early firefighters. You see that in many different pictures. But I think it was maybe a little bit based on that.
So are there any firefighting friends that you kind of lost touch with but you still remember? And
Oh yeah,
just
we
kinda-
meet every once in a while. There's a breakfast club, and they meet at a restaurant. And every once in a while we go down, and I don't go all the time, but I go every 6 months or so. And every time you get there, there's somebody else with a new cane or a pair of crutches. It's a little discouraging sometimes, but I've got a cane now that I have to lug around with me, but it's getting better. Just had a hip replacement, and that's about 7 weeks ago. So I still hobble a little bit, but I'm getting quite a bit better. Upstairs, there's a lot of other stuff. If you want to go up there, I don't know if you want to do
we'll take
that.
some pictures after. But listen, George, this has been a fantastic interview. Those that are going to be watching this are going to be just overjoyed to hear some of the
Well, I'm
stories from
sure
the
they've
past.
got a lot of stories as well.
I'm just wondering if there's anybody here that you'd like to introduce.
Just my wife, and she's gone.
Well, let's go find her.
This
Absolutely.
it!
Let's go find her. Here, we're going to grab your helmet here.
Oh yeah.
Take a picture of you.
This is!
See ya.
He doesn't hear me.
We'll go outside.
Oh.
Oh yeah, is that it?
Oh well.
No, come on in. Just stand
on.
right beside your lovely husband here.
This is my better half.
Yeah. And
My what? Say that again?
My better half.
And how many years have you
We've
coped with
been
George here?
We've been together for, come on,
Well,
Yeah.
14 years.
yeah, 35 years married, 5 years
Yeah.
on the tryout. So
And is there anything you want to share about his career as a firefighter and what you put into all this as well as being? I'm sure there was nights when you were worried.
Well, no.
no, you weren't worried, or
I was
no, you
not
know what I
worried
had?
because he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
No, I can't say I was worried.
There you go.
my
That's heavy.
my number one fan.
Awesome. Well, listen, on behalf of everybody that's going to watch this, thank you so much, you two. So show us how that works. What's the purpose of sealing?
Like this. It's easier if this is round.
And it's got a round bottom, so the
Yeah,
people
so
wouldn't
nobody
steal the
has to
pails
go
either.
bottom. So nobody
So
steals
they
it,
have
and
it-
it's-
they
well, like they
still-
have them in ferry boats, and if you put a
Ferry
rope
boat.
on it and throw it in the water,
Yeah.
it sinks right away
They do.
because of the round
Yeah.
bottom.
So you learned
Really?
something today.
Absolutely. Well, I learned a lot today. Absolutely.
This is science.
You know more about the fire department stuff that's up here than he does sometimes.
I have been with this man for 40 years.
Oh. And you're the one not walking without a cane. You should be because
And
of...
I learned fast.
You look fast. Look at the fire chief's car.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I used to go to Barrie, and there's lots of stuff in Barrie.
Storm clouds building and they're rolling round. I can feel the thunder as it shakes the ground. Momentary complication. Static on the radio station. Steady on now, gonna keep my course. Tell my heart that it ain't looking back no more. No time for desperation. Set my destination, please. No one ever promised it would be easy. Come on, why don't we go on the journey? Leave the doubt and worry, horizon far as I see. Come on baby, ready, set, 1, 2, 3, oh there it is, just beyond the sunset, place that we ain't been, yeah, won't ever get to be unless we go on the journey. They say traveling is half the fun, but I'm in it to win it, gotta get it done. I know it's gonna be better when we finally get